I literally cannot do this.
Does Google count as studying?
It all started as a joke. One normal afternoon, sitting around the table, my parents hit me with the classic line, "Homework builds character." And that's when I had a genius idea. I looked up and said, "Cool, then today, you're doing mine." They laughed. Big mistake, because this wasn't just homework anymore. This was a full family experiment. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button, because today's story proves that adults are not ready to be students again. So I printed out worksheets, math, reading, even a little science. I slid them across the table like I was a teacher who had seen things. My mom picked up the math page, confident at first. 30 seconds later, she squinted at it and said, "Why are there letters and numbers now?" Dad leaned over and whispered, "Is this new math or old math?" I said, "It's been like this for years." Silence. Mom grabbed a pencil like it personally offended her. She tried the first problem. Erased it. Tried again. Erased harder. Dad looked at his paper, sighed dramatically, and said, "I haven't done homework since flip phones were cool." I reminded him there was no talking during tests. He immediately started talking. 5 minutes in, Mom goes, "Can I take a break?" I said, "You just started." She replied, "My brain is tired." Dad raised his hand and asked, "Is this for a grade?" I smiled and said, "Yes." "And it affects your weekend." Suddenly, they cared. Then came reading time. I handed Mom a short paragraph and asked her to summarize it. She read it out loud, messed up 3 words, and said, "These sentences are too long." Dad tried to help and completely changed the story. I said, "That's not what it said." He said, "That's what it meant." Halfway through, Mom leaned back and said, "How do kids do this every day?" I said, "With stress." Dad nodded slowly like he'd just unlocked a life lesson. If this is making you laugh, subscribe because it only gets worse. Next up, science. Simple questions. Dad read one and said, "I know this. I just can't remember." Mom guessed confidently and was completely wrong. When I corrected her, she said, "That question was tricky." I replied, "You always say that to me." She paused, realized, and laughed. Then came the moment of defeat. Dad pulled out his phone and whispered, "Does Google count as studying?" Mom gasped and said, "You can't cheat." I looked at them both and said, "Interesting. Keep that energy." As the clock ticked, the complaints got louder. "My hand hurts. Why is this timed? Can we do this tomorrow?" I gave them the same answer I always get. No excuses. By the end, Mom was rubbing her temples. Dad handed in his paper like it was a legal document and said, "I did my best." I graded them. Slowly, dramatically. Mom failed math. Dad failed reading. Science? Both barely passed. They stared at the results in silence. Then Mom laughed and said, "Okay, I get it now." Dad added, "Yeah. Homework is actually hard." I leaned back, feeling powerful. Later that night, Mom helped me with my real homework. But this time, she was patient. Dad brought snacks and said, "You got this." And for once, nobody said, "It's easy." The next day, my parents went back to being parents, but something had changed. Less yelling, more understanding. And every time homework comes up now, Mom just smiles and says, "Yeah, let's survive this together." So if kids gave their parents homework for a day, grades wouldn't matter, but empathy would. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe, drop a comment saying homework revenge, and tell me what subject would your parents fail first?